As many people probably know, if you ever go to Freeside, you will find two children that are playing with one another. And if you talk to Max, he will tell you about this super awesome gun that he has, and that he will give it to you for 2,000 caps. No small amount of caps indeed. However, if you have high enough speech or the child at heart perk, you can convince him to give it to you for free or for a mere 20 caps. So obviously, you probably want to use your barter skill or your child at heart perk, and then you can get the gun for very cheap. And obviously this gun is the Euclid Sea Finder, which is a pretty awesome weapon that'll call down the power of the sun. However, you might have to make some bad choices in order to unlock that power. Hello everyone, the Army of Otters here, and welcome back to the Unexplored Mojave. Today we're going to be checking out HELIOS One, which is a very important location within Fallout New Vegas, and it's just somewhere we've never covered until now. Now, in the post-war era, HELIOS One was initially controlled by the Brotherhood of Steel, but after a lengthy battle with the NCR finally took control of the plant, and they maintain control of it today. However, the plant is in a very sorry shape as it's only producing 1% of its possible energy output. However, the player character can help unlock the full potential of this plant, or you can use it for your own evil deeds. Now, HELIOS One is based on the real-world Nevada Solar One, which is southwest of Boulder City, along Highway 95, and in real life it would be near Novak. However, in real life, Novak does not exist. It is just a fictional city within the Fallout universe. There is no town there, it's just nothing, it's just desert. But we do have this solar plant, which is pretty cool. And just also worth mentioning, as many are aware, I'm sure, in Greek mythology, Helios is a god and is the personification of the sun itself. So that is why it has this name. And then here's the location of HELIOS One. I'm sure you know where it is, but just north of Novak. Also, I had to use my other character, which has the Pimp Boy 3 billion, because I've completed HELIOS One on my main account. Now, real quick, I want to mention, if you see my railroad video, you already know this, but the railroad on the eastern part of the map actually ends at HELIOS One. And on the map, it shows up as an actual road, and it starts around this area at the train tunnel near Dead Wind Cavern. However, the other train track shows up as a dotted line. So I don't know why this train track shows up as a real road, like you can see here, or why it ends at HELIOS One. However, a lot of people speculate that perhaps the NCR was building this railroad track, and it's going to Boulder City, but the NCR has yet to finish it. Also, to the southwest of HELIOS One, there's this really weird depression in the ground. Not sure why it's here, but I just thought I would point it out because it's interesting to me that the creators put it there. Don't know why it's there, or what, it's just really random. Then, as you approach HELIOS One for the first time, you will find Lieutenant Haggerty. And basically, she will ask you what you're doing here. If you have a good reputation with the NCR, that's enough to get you inside. Or you might have to lie or get your way inside. Also, you can sneak in through a side entrance. However, if you choose to do that, the NCR soldiers inside will be hostile to you. Now, inside, there is various ammunition and stuff that you can take if you have a good reputation with the NCR. Now, if you don't have a good reputation, then it is considered stealing. So I went around just taking the ammunition, kind of seeing what was in here. Inside this next room, this room is pretty pointless as far as practical uses for the player, but there's just a lot of equipment and stuff, and upstairs we can find like this footlocker with ammunition and this small cot. Somebody must be living up here. But besides that, not a whole lot. Now, if we go to the right side of the entrance, we can find a lot of things of interest. One, we can find this kind of barracks, which the NCR soldiers appear to be using. Maybe it used to be a break room for the employees of HELIOS One. Here's that side entrance I mentioned earlier. It's a very easy lock. And as we continue to make our way through HELIOS One, we'll just find more kind of random rooms, and eventually you'll come up on this staircase. You can go right or go up the stairs. Now, you definitely want to go up the stairs because we can find two things of interest. However, I found another thing as well that's not so important, but we're going to talk about it. One, on the bed, we can find a DC Journal of Internal Medicine. In this footlocker, we can find the terminal password, which we will need later in the quest associated with this place. Also, the password can be found on this desk. They're the same password, the same holotape. You only need one of them, but you can take both like I did. Now on this terminal, we can learn a lot about Helios One, including the weapons program and some of the experiments that were going on here. We can learn a lot about the experiments and kind of how dangerous it was for the employees here. However, the one thing I really wanted to focus on is the specific entry. Can I tell him? Now this entry is rather long, so if you're not interested, please skip ahead in the video. I'll use timestamps so you know. But if you're interested, this entry made me laugh, so let's read it. Can I tell him? As a member of the Poseidon family, it will be natural for you to become enthusiastic about the incredible endeavors you'll be undertaking with us, and to want to tell others. But just a second there, my good man. Let's take a minute to consider what could happen if company information fell into wrong hands, and whose hands those might be. Can I tell my wife? Well, let's say you do. You tell her not to tell anyone. Your bond is sacred. But a woman's idle tongue is the devil's plaything. No sooner do you leave for work the next day than she's on the phone telling her best friend Candy. Then Candy tells Gertie. Gertie tells Maxine. Maxine tells Lulu. And while Lulu is telling Doris, a Chinese agent posing as an American operator listens in. And the next thing, she's on the line with the Forbidden City, singing like a treasonous canary. The following day, you and your wife are bound in shackles and China is sitting at the controls of our entire arsenal. Can I tell my children? What father wouldn't want his kids to look up to him? Don't be that father. One day at school, Ivan Bulikov will get more than lunch money out of your kids. He'll have national secrets. And while they're parading him through Red Square as a national hero, your children will be working in forced labor camps right next to you and your beautiful young wife, who's now wrinkled and homely since the communists have banned makeup because it expresses individuality. Can I tell my drinking buddies? Surely, if there's somewhere safe a man can place his trust, it's with his other male friends. But how much do you really know about them? Are they friends or comrades? Don't be too sure. Even the most transparent window can hide secrets when it's lined with iron curtains. Always remember, you are a member of two families now, and you have obligations to both. But your obligations to the Poseidon family is greater. Because while your children may misbehave and your friends may change and your wife may nag and cheat on you, Poseidon Energy will always be paying for and protecting your way of life. Don't tell anybody about anything about the projects of Poseidon Energy. When pressed, tell them that your job is repetitive and not worth discussing. But the company is nurturing and gives good benefits and is always looking for new talent. Anyway, this just really cracked me up. I thought it was quite funny, and it was difficult for me to read without laughing, so I just really love the Fallout humor, and we can see it here with Poseidon Energy. I also want to mention, if you read all of the entries on that terminal, it'll reveal the location of Black Mountain if you've yet to discover it. Now, if you make your way further into the plant, we will find Fantastic. This is one of the scientists who is working here at the plant, but he's kind of an idiot. And the NCR also thinks, well, he's kind of an idiot. But if you do talk to him, you can actually get some caps out of him, because you can convince him that you're going to take his job. With a speech check, you can convince him to give you caps, and you'll let him continue his shitty job. Also, worth noting is there's another scientist in here from the Followers of the Apocalypse who is actually capable, Ignacio Rivas. And Ignacio here will actually give you a big book of science if you help him in restoring power to the entire Mojave wasteland with the power station. So if you want to get that book, make sure you have good reputation with the Followers of the Apocalypse and to help out our good friend Ignacio. So the next part of the quest is we have to come outside to where all of these solar panels are, and we have to go activate these two terminals to reset their connection to the main area. Now, the first terminal is pretty easy to access, the west terminal, and we can get the password from Fantastic if you exhaust all of the dialogue options with him. But be more careful than I was so you don't blow yourself up. Oops. Then if we head on over to the opposite side, we can find the east terminal. However, this one is protected by various NCR guard dogs who are always hostile to the player character. I'm not sure why they're hostile, but the NCR doesn't care if you kill their guard dogs, which is really interesting. Anyways, just reset the mainframe connection, and then that part of the quest is complete. Now, there's nothing really out here amongst these solar panels. You can kind of look around at them, but Yeah, that's about it. They're kind of pretty, maybe. And then you can head on to the actual tower. And in here, you have a pretty difficult fight if you don't have the pulse gun, which I have the pulse gun on this account. Now, if you talk to Fantastic, he'll tell you that the NCR accidentally triggered an alarm down here, which sent all of the robots and security system into, well, craziness. So you will have a pretty tough battle ahead of you. However, if you have the pulse gun, which is from Vault 33, like I do, this is actually incredibly easy. But obviously getting the pulse gun is quite difficult. Also, I wanted to mention inside this small closet we can find a locked terminal, and if you hack it, you can deactivate the turrets in the room, so you don't have to fight them, but I already destroyed them, so it's kind of pointless at this point anyway. Then if we go on down to the bottom area, we can find some propaganda posters for Poseidon Energy. I find their propaganda to be quite amusing. And then inside, we can find a locked safe, which had some caps and also some pulse grenades in it. And down here, you can find a lot of pulse grenades, which might be useful for fighting robots. However, I have the pulse gun, so I didn't bother picking up the grenades because I'm already very heavy or have a lot of carry weight. Now, if we make our way throughout, we will just find more and more robots, but for me, no problem. Eventually, you come to these kind of maintenance tunnels. If you go to your right, inside this small kind of control room, you'll find an average locked door. If you pick that door, you can go straight to the control room, but before doing so, you want to go to the back room and you can find a skeleton. This will give you the employee ID card, which is very helpful here in a few moments. But I wanted to go ahead and show all of the robots. And over here, this robot was stuck, and then he phased through the wall, because why not? He is magical. And in this next room, we can find a room full of robots. And these robots are, well, they're really easy to kill, even without the pulse gun, so going through the average locked door is not all that helpful, really. But anyways, you can do it. I decided to go back and check out this other room, which is partially collapsed. For some reason, it has a bunch of typewriters, or at least I think those are typewriters. Don't know why there's typewriters, though, in the Fallout universe, but hey, that's interesting. There's that average locked door from earlier. As you can see here, you would skip all of that we just covered. And there's also like some gourd seeds and stuff. Not sure why it's there, but nothing really of interest. Go in the elevator and we'll come upstairs to where the mainframe is. However, you'll notice that the auxiliary generator, well, it's in a sorry state. Also, I just wanted to point out, on this desk, there is a children's block. Don't know why it's here, like one of those alphabet blocks. I know these are in Fallout 3 at the very beginning. Don't know why it's here, but you cannot take it with you, but you can pick it up. Now, in this next room, we'll find a robot. His name is Python. You can activate him with science or the employee ID card, 45 science, and he will go over and fix the generator. Now, there is a small holographic map in that room, and I just wanted to say that that map is actually from Fallout 3 and shows the Capital Wasteland. Anyway, interesting little fact, but if we go back, Python will fix the mainframe for us, and from here we can choose how to configure the solar array. And you have several options. Now, the NCR would like you to do McCarran, but you can also choose Fremont and Westside, which is maybe good for the locals there, the full region, and Archimedes, or you can do the full region emergency output level. However, if you do the fifth option, it'll completely destroy the power plant, and it's useless for everyone. Now, if you choose the third option, this is seen maybe as the best option since it'll distribute all of its power equally throughout the Mojave Wasteland. And you can also then get the Big Book of Science from Ignacio. However, I didn't quite do it right with Ignacio, or my reputation with the followers is not high enough for me to receive the Big Book of Science, but it is possible to get. Obviously, then we can also do Archimedes 2, and this will give you the greatest power in the world, the power of the sun, with the Euclid Sea Finder. However, this is quite a bad weapon, and, well, it leaves everyone else in the Mojave to kind of fend for themselves. They won't get any electricity. But hey, you have the power of the sun, so that's pretty good. But you can also choose to activate the Archimedes test. And if you choose to do this, you will kill all of the NCR troops at the facility. And you actually get a pretty epic show of the weapon's full potential. And you can obviously see why the US Army would have been interested in it during its war with China. Here we can see the power plant activating up, and then instead of just dying down like before, it starts shooting freaking laser beams out of the sky. You can see the NCR troops below me are very angry at me, and they'll try to shoot you, but you're pretty far away from them. And then it starts raining down freaking plasma sunbeams on top of them, kind of killing them. But you'll notice then that, well, that's kind of lame. That wasn't really that much. And then after a few seconds, or yeah, like 10 seconds or so, you're gonna get an epic finale. Perhaps that's the largest explosion in the game, I don't know, but it leaves a scorch mark on the freaking planet. Pretty insane. But after that, if you wait for 2 days and you come back to Helios One, you will now find that it's occupied by the Legion, and all of the banners will change to Legion banners. However, this does not increase your reputation with the Legion, interestingly enough. But if you are friendly with the Legion, or you visit Caesar for the first time, Caesar will actually mention that this is good for the Legion. And while the Legion says they have no real interest in the plant, they're just holding it against the NCR, it does appear that the Legion is trying to use it for power output. However, it is worth noting that even if the Legion occupied, if you steal anything from the power plant, it will negatively impact your reputation with the NCR, and not the Legion, which is kind of funny and definitely an oversight. Alright everyone, I hope you enjoyed this video of the Unexplored Mojave, taking a look at Helios One. I hope you learned something about Helios One, and that you enjoyed the video. You could also kind of use this as a guide, I suppose, for how to complete that lucky old sun. As always, thank you guys so much for watching, and if you have any recommendations or ideas for future videos, please post them in the comments section below. And as always, until next time.